Welcome back. It's time to talk women's hoops at NDSU, and there is no one better to talk about this than Brian Shawn. So welcome to the show, Brian. It's great to have you here, and let's go ahead and get started with the first question. The Bison have a record of 5-2 at this point. Is this something that you expected them to do after their first month of games?
You know, a little bit, but I'm not terribly surprised. I thought having the first 4 games at home really helped because this is still a really young team with only 1 senior and 2 juniors on the roster. And yes, 2 of those wins were against lower division opponents, but the victory over UMass was a big step forward. That is the team the Bison lost to last year on the road, so it built some confidence. And this is a program that didn't have a Division I non-conference victory a year ago, so to have 3 already moving into December is a step forward. Now, the challenges ahead are going to get tougher, certainly. NDSU is in the midst of a 4-game road trip. The Bison took 1 on the chin last night at Colorado, certainly. But I think the game at home on Tuesday with UT Rio Grande Valley will be a big one. That's another team they lost to on the road last season, so we'll see.
Yeah, and definitely a young team, but definitely a better start than they had last season. And let's talk a little bit about the makeup of this team now. We knew Taylor Thunstead would be the leading scorer, but we weren't sure about who would step up in the supporting cast. Sarah Jacobson has really become a leader as the second leading scorer this year. Tell us about how you've seen her maybe take a step in her sophomore season.
You know, I was actually swapping a couple messages with Sarah's mother, Pat, the other day, who is one of the top players in program history at NDSU. And as a true sophomore, she's a captain already, which I think tells you a lot. She has really helped a lot of the freshmen in the program get acclimated after taking her knocks last year. You know, and then we saw her take over in the UMass game, hitting 7 3-pointers, scoring a career-high 25 points. And I really think having a year in the weight room to condition and get ready for this rigors of Division I has clearly paid dividends for her as well, which I think all the freshmen really needed, but for Sarah, I think for as many minutes as she played, that was an important piece for her over the summer.
Right, and definitely shows her leadership as a sophomore. Like you said, that's a great point in her being in the weight room. Well, another contributor in this point column has also been Michelle Geisler-Rover. She's got a strong last name, doing some strong things on the court as well, averaging double digits.
Yeah, a freshman that doesn't play like a freshman at all, and there's a reason for that. She's originally from the Czech Republic, has a ton of international experience, having to go up against older, experienced players as member of the under-18 and under-20 national team. So she's not intimidated at all when she takes the floor. Interestingly enough, Michelle's 61 points through her first 6 games are the most by a freshman in the D1 era at NDSU. So having that kind of production off the bench is so important because the Bison just have not had that since Maren Walseth has been at NDSU. So to be able to bring a couple of players off the bench, including Geisler-Rover, that can give you quality minutes while taking some minutes off, you know, some of the other starters like Taylor Thunstead, who's playing 35, Sarah Jacobson 35, that distributes the minutes more evenly and should keep them fresher down the stretch.
Yeah, super impressive and a great find for the Bison for sure. Well, let's talk about Riley Jacobson now and what role she's played so far this season.
Well, she had a really bad illness in early November, mono or whatever it was, so that kept her sidelined for nearly 3 weeks. But when you talk to the Bison coaching staff, they will tell you that no player made greater strides in the summer from year 1 to year 2 than Riley Jacobson. Her ability to not only score but also rebound and defend, that makes a big difference on the floor as she mentors 3 true freshman post players that are learning as they go. So Jacobson made her first start last night against Colorado. I expect that she'll remain in the starting lineup now with Macy Quilvang to give the Bison some added length. And really, hopefully, that length is what they're going to need in the Summit League to compete. A lot of good post players.
And the Bison, I'm sure, are hoping that she stays healthy through the rest of the season. The Bison have gotten through the first month of their season well. Let's take a look at December and where they play some out-of-conference games, including a road trip north to Grand Forks. What do you expect to see from this team in the next leg of the season?
Well, I think improvement taking care of the basketball is going to be key. Up until last night, NDSU was only averaging about 13 turnovers a game, 6 less than a year ago. Now the Bison, they're going to be challenged physically with some active guards and pressured significantly over the next few games. When you look at UT Rio Grande Valley, North Dakota, and Cal Poly, last year against those 3 opponents, the Bison turned it over an average of 21 times a game. So if NDSU can just play well at home, try to grind out a couple of wins, I think that would be huge for confidence before getting into conference play. This is a group, again, that's still so young that confidence can wane pretty frequently when you have a young team. So I think any win they can get here in the non-conference will only help them once they get to January.
It'll definitely be interesting to see. Well, thanks so much, Brian, for joining us. Remember, you can catch the Bison basketball show every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. right here on Midco Sports Network. Coming up next, more Bison talk. This time we find out about the unsung heroes who play tight end at North Dakota State.